Hey, this is William Tincup and Ryan Leary, and you're listening to You Should Know podcast. We're actually talking with Matt. He's from Bullhorn. We were just kind of catching up on some history of Bullhorn, which is fascinating. There's probably books that are going to be written about this at some point. The history of Bullhorn. Matt, would you do us a favor before we get into the topic and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Fischer, I'm the president and COO of Bullhorn. I was the CTO of Bullhorn for 10 years prior to that, and it's always exciting to talk about tech, any opportunity I get. And I've been at the organization for 20 years.
And you had a full head of hair,
I
full
had, I
beard.
I did. I had a full head of hair. I had a full beard. It's amazing what 20 years in recruiting will do to you, right?
Yeah,
No doubt.
I'm not gonna blame that on private equity. However, I've heard stories, I've read stories. Just kidding. For the audience, we're gonna be talking about AI and recruiting. So we're gonna get Matt's take on what he sees. Bullhorn has a ton of customers, probably trying different things. So kind of can't wait to get your take on it. So where do you want to start with AI and recruiting?
From my view,
Yeah.
I thought you were the one asking the questions here.
Uh,
Uh,
We'll
yeah, no, no,
we'll
no, no.
ask
You're
questions.
interviewing us. You're interviewing us.
That's
We're
Wouldn't it
the
be
experts.
wouldn't that be a great bit to
yeah,
have a guest on and
yeah,
unbeknownst to him, it's like, all right, let you
yeah,
go.
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
Victoria didn't tell you that we're the experts today.
Dude, that would be so great of a podcast.
Yeah,
Just to flip
yeah.
that on.
You almost pulled it off there, but not quite.
We tried. We tried. It can get more awkward. We could just pretend we can't hear you.
Oh yeah. Oh, we've done that before too.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
freeze on purpose.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So what are you seeing with AI and recruiting? What are you with your customers and even Bullhorn itself proper?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What are you
I
seeing?
think, in all seriousness, I mean, it's definitely an exciting topic for folks. I think we're somewhere on the hype cycle, and I think
Yeah.
that there's a lot of confusion about how disruptive it will be, and will you even need recruiters in 20 years, and what will their job be, and I think that how quickly ChatGPT burst onto the scene only 12 months ago put this in a spotlight in a way that there was a lot of catching up that people had to do to really understand how it would impact recruiting. And so a lot of what we talk about with our customers is really just educating them on how it will add value and where in the life cycle we'll be able to integrate it. And we have a pretty strong position on it, which is yes, we're probably at the peak of inflated expectations right now, maybe coming down the other side of that. And but in the end of the day, your data really matters. Your ability to integrate AI into the workflow really matters, because what you don't want people doing is going out to ChatGPT and trying to figure it out themselves. That's not a great use of a recruiter's time. And I think that's what a lot of people do because it happens so quickly. And, everybody was sort of playing catch up on it. So there's lots of interest in generative AI, in searching and matching, and, sort of what the revolution will look like, I guess.
So Matt, let's unpack this a little bit. You mentioned that you're working with your clients to set some expectations. What are as you're going into these conversations, and I'm interested here because we talk to a lot of people in recruiting, obviously, and we're not seeing outside of the normal kind of trends that people talk about. We're not really seeing educated expectations. It's
Mm,
more the Jetsons, right?
Agree.
Their futuristic flying cars, and which
Yeah.
at some point, got it, all good. But
Yep.
where are your clients' expectations baseline when you start
mm,
to have these conversations?
Yeah, I think baseline there's two areas, right? One is how can I be more efficient, and how can I use AI to
Mhm.
drive efficiency and productivity through my organization in a practical way, right? It's very easy to talk about it in the abstract, but in a practical way, how can I do that? And that's really where we think that our product set can add value to our customers, because it is integrated into the workflow. We are the domain experts. We can help translate AI and marry that to what our people do on a day-to-day basis, and help them be more effective at just doing what they do, right? So that's part of it. And we've also seen, we've got an automation product we acquired Herefish 5 years ago, and our customers have adopted that in great effect. And in many ways, if you've already embraced the fact that you can automate a large part of your workflow, it's not that big of a leap to then say,
Right.
okay, I can use AI
Mhm.
and it can do even that much more for me. So
How do I tighten it up and make it better is where you're
100%.
at.
And so like it's in some ways it's like this is just another tool to make automation and getting to that model easier, right? And more effective. And so, that's a contingent of folks. And then there's another contingent of folks that are more like the Jetsons, like you talked about, which is
Mhm.
we're not going to need recruiters in 20 years and it's going to be a full recruiterless model. And, and I'm not of that opinion personally. I think that the option sure will be there if you want to automate fully end to end, but then I think you're discounting what our customers do really well and the human touch that they provide in the process.
Those are the same people, William, that are saying we said in 1992 we're not going to have resumes
Sure.
coming, in
Or job
2005
boards.
or
Job,
job boards.
yeah. Or, I get asked this question all the time in terms of augmentation versus automation.
Mm-hmm.
In companies that are going through, usually it's corporates, that are going through the transition to kind of figure out where they are in that process and what can be kind of low value tasks that can be automated and kind of where that human touch should be. Like they're not, the corporates I deal with, they're not trying to get rid of the humans, not altogether. They're just saying the humans shouldn't be performing certain tasks like
Yes.
scheduling or something like that. They should be doing other things. Okay, and if we say the new normal is that they're going to be carrying 40 recs or something like that, okay, well they just need to be more efficient. And it's not
Right.
they need to be more efficient; it's the things around them that need to create that efficiency. Do you see some of the same stuff play out in the staffing world?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And I think that concept of where you put the human, I think is a
Right,
really important concept because that's also how our customers can differentiate because they can
right,
decide where they can use automation, where you don't need to
Mhm.
put the human for high value, and in some cases that may be that was a job I was never going to fill anyway because that's a low margin job that came in through the VMS and I'm okay
right,
automating all of that. In other cases, I know I need high touch. So when you actually parse it apart, you realize that there's no one size fits all. You're going to decide based on a whole bunch of different criteria where you put the person in the process, the type of job, the type of customer, the type of talent, et cetera. And so everything we think about is how can you give the customers the flexibility to make that decision and use it when they want to use it.
Where are they making that decision today to put the human? And where do you, maybe as Bullhorn,
Yeah.
where do you see that changing over the next year or so?
hmm,
Yeah, they're making that decision today in automation, and
right,
they're deciding where they want to inject the personal touch. And there's sort of two ways to think about it. One is you could start from a recruiterless mindset and think,
Mhm.
I'm going to automate everything and decide where to put the person. I think most of our customers are not doing that. Most of them are saying, I'm starting from how I've always done it and figuring out where I can automate instead.
right,
So you can come at that from both different angles. But they're doing it primarily in automation. And I think where the opportunity is for our customers is to unify all of that. Since it's all on one platform now in Bullhorn, you can pull all of that together and decide from end to end, including the talent experience, how you want to do that. And we're just in the sort of the beginning phases of helping our customers explore this concept. So I think they'll continue to make those decisions. They'll continue to decide talent experience where they need the recruiter, internally what they want them doing, as they go. And then, as equally important, I think, is where do you put AI in that process? Because you have some customers that believe like I want to review every single communication that goes out to a candidate because I don't trust that generative AI is going to represent me
right.
the way I should be represented, right? And then you have others that are like, there's no way generative AI is going to be worse than a canned message template that I use today, right?
Ding.
Right.
I
So
feel like
like,
I need the Rocky bell. Ding,
yeah,
ding.
so
There,
I
It's
happen to
over.
believe the latter. So you got to give them the choice.
right. So one of the things I wanted to get your take on is evaluating technology. So Bullhorn proper, y'all are always innovating, check, and you're going to be adding in generative AI and AI and infusing it in different places. But you also have a really robust marketplace
Yeah.
and people that you're integrated with, etc. So how do you look at, you know, how do you look at these companies that want to integrate with you? Like, I understand it from their perspective. It's like you'll have thousands of customers. Of course, we'd want to integrate with you. But how do y'all kind of make the determination on whether or not they should be in your marketplace?
Love that
Yeah.
question. There's
And Matt, before you answer, let
yeah,
me add to that.
sure.
Is that decision based on what they're doing today or
Mm,
what they're thinking about and evaluating the future for your current clients?
right.
All of the above.
Yeah.
So we've long sort of been the champions of an open ecosystem is the best way to serve the total,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so we have different tiers of marketplace. So we have new emerging companies that have got a cool idea that are like,
Right.
hey, we want access to Bullhorn customers, and they can do that. We give them what's called a developer license, and they can go build on top of the platform, and they can work with our customers. But there is some sort of validation or proof point where the customers say this thing is awesome, and
Right.
this is gonna, like, you've got 5 or 10 customers that are
Ye-
saying this actually works, it adds value, it does what they say it's going to do. Okay, now you get bumped up to the next tier in the marketplace, and you get more access to more customers, and and that kind of thing. And so that's how we think about it. We'll let anybody develop on the platform, and as they get further proof points, they get deeper and deeper into the whole process.
I like that a lot. First of all, again, one of the things I like is the recognition we don't need to build it all. It's similar to kind of Salesforce and Benioff's strategy is like, okay, we're not going to build it all. There's going to be just a bunch of things that we just either don't want to, can't, won't, whatever. We're just not interested. Let other people build that, but build a really wonderful ecosystem around it. I mean, y'all have a great user conference. I've not been to it, but I've had a lot of friends that go to it, and they always come back like that was a good use of time. That was a good use of money, etc. It reminds me of Dreamforce. And I've been to Dreamforce, and it is if you love Salesforce, it's Disneyland.
Yeah,
Like it's crazy because you could go booth to booth and go, oh my God, I had no idea it did this. Oh my God, I had no idea it did this. And
yeah.
I've had folks that have been to y'all's. I think it's called Engage. Is that
Engage,
right?
coming
Yeah.
up May 15th, so it's right around the
Oh,
corner.
very nice. Is it in Boston?
It is in Boston. We do it in Boston every
It's
year.
got to be in Boston. It's got to be in Boston.
Yeah.
Come on now. Why, that was a dumb question on my
No,
part.
he's
I'm
going to
sorry,
do it
man.
in Philly, down here.
It's
Dumb
not gonna be
question.
in Philly, that's for sure. Yeah.
So I mean, you're probably not super involved in the content for the conference, but what do you think the kind of the main themes are going to be as it relates to AI and Gen AI? What do
Yeah.
you think you're going to see?
We're talking a lot about it. I do a session with, I don't know if you know Jason Howman, but he was the
Yeah.
CEO of Herefish, and
Yep.
he now runs all things automation and AI for Bullhorn. And he and I do a vision for innovation session every year, where we sort of set out the roadmap and talk about stuff like this, and how we see the overall landscape of AI playing out, and how we integrate that into our platform and our tech. And one of the things we're going to talk about, just to quickly tie it back to the marketplace, is this concept of, because we have such a large ecosystem and there is so much data that resides in our marketplace,
Right.
getting all of that into our platform so that we can use it to train AI and machine learning models based on the entire ecosystem of data is of huge interest to everybody, to us, to our marketplace partners, and to our customers. And so there's a product called Data Hub that we're announcing at Engage, which does just this. It's sort of productized integrations for all of the ecosystem to funnel that back into Bullhorn so that we can use that to represent a full end-to-end to our customers, AI, analytics, automation, et cetera, all off of one data store. So that's just one of the many things we'll talk about, but it's exciting.
Dumb question on my part, but is there a way to create with metadata? Is there a way to create your own large language model for Bullhorn or Bullhorn's customers?
So the way we think about that, and just sort of think about LLMs in general, is that
Right.
12 months ago, I got up on stage and Engage and said that these are going to be ubiquitous and commoditized by the next time I show up 1 year from now. And that was all of 4 months after GPT went public.
Right.
And it's already turned out to be true, right? Like,
Right.
you can pull, Mistral off the shelf or Llama off the shelf, and it's going to be arguably as good as something you have to pay Microsoft a lot of money for.
Right.
And so the way we think about it is, over time, we absolutely can train large language models on staffing specific data, right? That's a huge value add of having all this data on our platform. And so that's certainly where we're headed with that.
But it doesn't matter which one. You just be able, whether or not it's OpenAI or any of the ones that you've mentioned, you'd be, it doesn't matter. You'd be Swiss.
Bring your own model. Yep, that's how we think about it, for sure.
Matt, where do you see some of the pitfalls that clients or just recruiting in general, staffing in general, needs to be aware of?
As it relates to AI in particular, I think the quality and size and scope of data that you train models on is really important. Recruiting has not historically been known for excellent data quality. So as a result, you can only train a model.
I have to mark this spot.
100%.
That's the feature right there.
No, that's a title. That's the title of the show. Recruiters.
It's probably not really debatable. I can't really think of anybody who's the other side of the argument.
No one's going to take you on right there. You're good.
Exactly. You're good. So I think that is an area that customers need to pay attention to. The better the data, the cleaner the data, the more effective we'll be at actually, training models that are producing, solid outcomes. That's one. And I also think, sort of back to our previous conversation, customers' willingness to experiment is also really, really important, because the customers that are doing well early doors are willing to sort of throw incentives out the window. They're willing to throw process out the window and say, you know what, I'm going to start from scratch, blank slate. And there's a lot of organizational inertia in many companies that struggle to embrace the fact that they have to think differently about it. And so I think if you can get data quality right, and you can get people in the right mindset to experiment and try things differently and not get sort of overburdened by the processes of today or yesterday, I think customers can make a pretty quick impact.
What's the kind of the mindset to make their data better? I mean, Ryan and I have used tools in the past to kind of augment data, things like that, or even purify and go in and kind of help you with your data. But that's, I think that's more from a marketing perspective than anything. Kind of rounding out the contact data and things like that. But where do you see when we say that, okay, they're sitting on dirty data or imperfect data, et cetera? One of the things is it's never going to be perfect.
Correct.
Check. But how do they make it better outside of, institutionally prioritizing data? I could see that. But how do they do it with tech? How do they make their data better?
Yeah, so there's augmentation, like you mentioned. We have a couple market partners that do that. That's one thing.
Cool.
I would say I would substitute better also for current. What we see from our customers, and I think everybody sees this, is you may have 20 million candidates in your database, but you probably have only talked to 5% of those in the last 12 months. And so this is really where automation plays, I think, a really big role, because it's about engaging and nurturing the candidates that you already paid for, they're already in your database, and engaging them in campaigns, getting them to actually use your talent platform so that they are self-serving and keeping their data up to date. There's a lot of data hygiene automations and self-service around talent platform that can help with that problem. And we measure that in terms of what we call database utilization, right? How often are you going back to your own database versus having to go back out to LinkedIn or a board and pay again for somebody to get their most current information? And we see customers that use automation, when they do it the right way, that number moves up dramatically, because they can start serving from their own database because they've kept it current, they've kept it clean. And so
there's also a cost savings there, because as you just mentioned, you've bought the data before, or you bought. Why go out and buy it again when you could just keep it up to date? I love that.
Absolutely.
So my question there was going to be very similar, William, to your comment, which is, what is the cost, or what's the cost that clients or customers are paying for by going back into their database? What's that dollar amount that you can assign to that?
That you can assign for going back out to the boards?
Going back out to the boards, revenue loss by doing that.
Yeah, I don't have a specific number to be honest with you. I mean, that's actually data that I think we wish we knew.
Me too.
Which is really,
I had that backwards. Sorry.
It's expensive. It's expensive because they have to go back and buy it again.
Yeah,
So
sure.
there's the
Especially if they're using, like, right, if they're on LinkedIn and they're paying again and, they keep doing that over and over and over again. I think we wish we knew a little bit better how to calculate the ROI on that, but it's definitely expensive. And our customers have certainly been able to decrease the cost of external job boards by doing these things. I don't have an exact number for you, though.
Well, in fact, if they're spending the money keeping their data current, using your words, they shouldn't have to go back out to those sources if they built a big enough database.
Yeah.
That's I love that.
And it's
What do you
also,
see?
I would also say one more thing. I would also say it's about redeployment too. I mean, it's very
Right.
expensive to start from scratch every time. And so when you've got your data current and you're like instrumented as an organization to go redeploy talent that you've already spent time getting to want to work with your firm, you see additional, gross profit savings there too. So those two kind of go hand in hand.
I love it. What are you seeing in AI matching? We see on the corporate side, pretty much throw a rock and you can hit somebody talking about about matching and using AI to match different candidates to jobs and jobs to candidates and things like that. But the staffing world is a little bit different, built a little bit different. So what do you see?
I think that there's a key difference here. And I think for however long we've all been at this, there's always somebody claiming that their matching is the best. But from a technical perspective, everybody
He's
is
trying to be very nice here.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. We need to go. We need to go have a beer or two and be off camera. And we'll get the real story. But go ahead. Sorry, Matt.
But technically, everybody's always done it the same way. It's all been looking at resumes, parsing out terms, and doing semantic search. And it's always been find me another resume that looks like this resume. That's been the tail of the tape for however long we've all been doing this.
100%.
We think about that very differently because we have the outcomes, which is something that not everybody has. We know who gets placed. So we have 5 million just in the last year placements, people that successfully went to go work somewhere. And so our matching algorithms start from there. And they say, what do the people that actually were successful have in common? It's not about comparing resumes. It's about understanding what candidates have in common with other people who are successful at actually getting that job and doing that. And then the next layer is other people that were maybe silver medalists or runners up. And so our models look at this very differently. It's outcome based. And everything that we've trained, all of our machine learning models are sort of making recommendations based on similar candidates who have been successful at similar jobs versus resumes that look the same. And that sounds nuanced, but it's extremely different in terms of the accuracy that you get out of that. Because, in the semantic world, you're basically just creating big Boolean strings and anybody can stack their resume. The more terms you put in there, the higher you show up on the list. That's how it's always been. This is less like that. This is looking at all of the other variables that go into whether or not somebody is successful, all their activity, their work history, how long they have actually practiced those skills in reality, and all the insights that you can glean from the profiles that get cultivated and ultimately get placed. So we have a different twist on it. And when we surface the matches, we're surfacing them very similar to like how Amazon is recommending books. You're saying, you like Will, you'll probably like these 5 people, but you may not. It's okay if you don't buy those 5 books. Like that's okay. And so like the way that they get surfaced to the customer and the way we do the matching is also a little bit different. So we think it's differentiated. Our customers have been successful making, we have some businesses that are doing 25% of their placements just from using that matching tech alone in an automated way.
That's high. That's
huge.
pretty high.
That's high.
Yeah.
Now there's not a lot that are doing that, but there are enough to say that if you embrace that and you use it that way, then you can get a similar outcome.
That's exactly. And I love the comparison. I've always struggled staffing versus corporate. Like, is it really that different? And I know it is. But when you say it that way, we say you have just last year 5 million or whatever the number was, 5 million.
5 million.
A corporate entity, maybe they have 1,000 hires.
Exactly.
20,000,
maybe
40,000 hires.
Yeah.
That is not the same, right? And they're just saying, well, we hired Johnny and he came from, I don't know, UCLA, and now he's a developer. Let's go get more UCLA grads like Johnny. It's not the same. It's not the same. Yeah.
Just more data equals better. I mean, that's just it's kind of a war in the sense of the person with the more weapons, and this is data is that
Yeah. Well, it's
you just get
charting the path. It's
yeah.
just there.
It's,
Yeah.
well, one question I'll ask you is either Bullhorn proper or through a partner, are you helping are you helping customers with job descriptions in the sense of like making them better?
Yes.
Uh, you know what I'm saying? Because it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So we've been talking mostly about candidate data, but on the front end of that is kind of the marketing utility that they put out there as a job description. If it's crap, okay, well, we're already starting at a deficit. So tell us a little bit about that and kind of its AI story.
Yeah, so I've made it this far without talking about our Copilot product, which is sort of our AI, which I know really unique name, I know, but
No, right? Actually, this is funny. Now, this is prior
yeah,
to the Super Bowl, and prior to Microsoft's release or whatever. Ryan was talking on podcast
yeah,
about everyone's going to have a co-pilot.
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
everybody in every job in every form of society,
Just
everyone's going to have someone, right? Whatever.
personal.
Eh,
Actually, I can't remember the name. I just saw it the other day. It's a little thingy that clips.
oh
Have you
yeah, it's a
seen this, Matt?
wearable. Yeah,
A
it's a
wearable.
wearable.
Yeah. It clips, and I mean, I'm not paying for it yet, but
No, it does
it's getting
foreign language.
close.
It does
Yes.
one of the things it does is foreign language, so it can
Right.
hear a foreign language and then bring it into your ears and then
Mhm.
speak in your own language. Anyhow, so tell us about
yeah.
your Copilot.
So well, yeah, and I think Copilot will become Pilot and Autopilot over time. Like I think that's where that goes.
100%.
But today, it's
Mhm.
just somebody who's assisting you, and so our Copilot uses a lot of LLM Gen AI stuff to assist in
Right.
content creation across the board, across the whole workflow. That's a large part. Part of it's matching. The other part of it is this content generation stuff. And so the job description thing is a great use case for that, where that is certainly something that customers do not do well. Like we look at our job descriptions and go, I bet you only 20% of these things are actually any good, and it would be awesome if they were 100 because that would like seriously help us train our AI. And so yeah, so Copilot will be able to help build out job descriptions based on a variety of different factors. There's also other things like writing pitch letters
Right.
decks for candidates.
Mm.
Like those are things that take people a lot of time to do today if they do it well. And if they don't do it well, it's all generic and there's no personalization. And so if you have the job description and you have the resume, you can really very easily create great pitch letters and you can tailor them to, whoever you're sending them to. We have a funny thing where you can pick the tone. Like, are you sending it to a boomer or are you sending it to Gen Z? It will change
I
the way that
love
you do
that.
it, right? So those are just kind of fun to play around
What,
with. But
what was your favorite Beatles album?
Yeah.
but conceptually,
It
that's
would be even better if you could just put the year of birth, the date of birth,
Done.
and see the difference between each person.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny, but
Maybe where they live, because we live in like 11 different parts of the United States.
yeah,
So like,
we actually do that. We take location into account when you do that. You can ask it to do something personal, like inject something funny about wherever the person lives, and it will say, "Oh, they live
oh, that's
in
genius.
Oregon," and here you go. You can put something funny
All
in
right, you sold me, Matt. I need to see a demo now.
Fly Eagles, fly Eagles, fly. Got
Yeah.
it.
there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Hey, we
So
just re-signed Devontae Smith, so back off.
100%.
We're
Hey,
good.
Hey,
Alabama,
I cannot talk about this. Yeah,
Yeah.
Alabama football. Not a problem. Love that. You're a Patriots fan,
I
of
am.
course, right?
Yeah, that
Yep.
Well,
sucks.
hey, don't worry about it. I remember when I grew up in an era where they were not great, but we lived through a wonderful era where they were great,
Same.
and hopefully they can get it turned around pretty quickly.
I agree.
Um, let's talk a little bit about skills in our world on the corporate side in HR. Everything in HR is led with some type of skills discussion.
Mhm.
Usually, I think Ryan and I are a little bit cynical because it kind of sounds a lot like competency models
Yeah.
again, and we went through that era where everyone talked about competency models, no one implemented them.
Yep.
So, what are you seeing in the staffing world as it relates to skills and AI and kind of that intersection between the two
Yep.
from a staffing perspective?
Yeah. The holy grail for customers is to be able to know how to specifically classify a candidate or a job, right? I mean, to be able to say, show me
Good point.
all, anywhere in the taxonomy, right? Show me all Java
Right.
developers or show me all whatever. And historically, that's been pretty tricky because you've had to use parsers that are not awesome at weighting those skills when they pull them out. So you get this laundry list of skills, and you're like, oh, okay, that's
Right.
100 things. They can't be graded 100 things. Right. But this is really another area where I think LLMs have changed the game. And so what we've started to do, and we're early on this, but what we started to do is classify almost like a shadow record of every profile that comes in the system and parse out not only their skills, but put them into a standardized hierarchy. And you can just ask the LLM to do it. You don't have to manage a hand-created taxonomy anymore. That stuff's like, that's legacy stuff. You don't have to do that anymore, right? And then you can start getting more specific about like how long have they actually had that skill? At what types of companies did that skill, right?
And what's tertiary to those skills? If they know that, they probably know this, and this.
Right. And so you're not doing it with like this sort of like semantic keyword expansion thing, which is how everybody's been doing it forever. You're doing it by like creating these profiles and having, you know, an LLM driven taxonomy and a classification for candidates and jobs. And then like think about that all the way through. Like if you're in analytics and you actually want to run a report about your margin profile for Java developers or whatever it might be, there's no more sort of, you know, gymnastics that you have to do to figure that out. You just go, I've already classified it. I want to go figure that out for whatever that is.
Do you see verification or validation of those skills as a part of that process?
You know what
I'm saying? Like we have a job developer, we say they're a 5-star and there's some type of depth and breadth to whatever their knowledge is.
Yeah.
But how do we know that?
I know. I think that's a good question. And I think that can go many different ways. There's all sorts of sort of, you know, there's blockchain verification of that kind of stuff.
Right.
I'm not, I don't know. I'm in the middle on that. Like how successful you can actually be at doing that at scale, right?
Is there a version of that that's internal only to the organization through feedback and assessment, all that stuff?
I think that's what I was going to say. I think that's where that goes. I think that becomes a competency of a staffing agency, and they have their own way of sort of figuring this out and determining the relative proficiency of these folks. And there's ways you can deduce it looking at data, and you can do some external validation. But I think doing that really reliably at scale is probably pretty tricky. But if a customer gets it right, it's certainly you know, IP for them.
So let me ask,
go ahead.
So let me ask you this, Matt. This is something I've been looking for, and if it's out there and I just don't know it, if anyone's listening, please let me know. So when I was on a desk, and this is a long time ago, so this could have changed, but you had said something where you're building your taxonomy. You can go left and right. You can make deduction. You can deduce where or how good people are, how proficient, where they've been, and all that stuff. Is there a way for you now or in the future, is there a way to say that William is a developer at company A in 2023? Or so we'll say 2015. In 2015, he was a developer at company A. Here are the 5 other companies in our LLM that in 2015 also have this same skill set on other people. So we can now safely make the assumption that William has experience at this particular level or on specific projects if it's at that same company. So use case, I'm thinking when I was with Connects, and again, long time ago, Java Shop, we were looking for people that worked very specific projects. We knew just because of people in the industry, Comcast had those very specific people, but it took we got lucky because we only knew because somebody knew personally and came from there. Is there a way now for you to just say, yes, these people at these 4 companies worked on a very similar project and would have these very similar skill sets?
I mean, I love that idea in theory. You know, I think I think this connection back to the customer is a big one, just in general, in terms of what that actually allows you to do. Because especially if you think about it from a placement perspective, if you know people that have been successfully placed at a certain company, you can go find other people that worked at that company and you can start to create all of these instances and stuff, right? And that's a new thing. And I don't think anybody's really doing that particularly well. I think that's an opportunity. Down to the project level, as you mentioned, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, uh, you have to try to figure out, I guess, how to get that information off of a resume or a profile at that level of detail that you could do it. I
Yeah.
mean, that sounds awesome. I'm not sure,
It always sounded awesome in my head.
Yeah.
But
It,
I think,
yeah.
but I would go on. I would sort of pick up on the company side of things, because I think what you're saying there is really powerful, because of people that are working, and it could, whether it's Amazon or whatever it is, like I
Mhm.
think that's really powerful, and I think you can start to draw some conclusions that previously you wouldn't be able to connect the dots on.
Yeah.
So I need you to solve. It's not a fight, but a disagreement that Ryan and I have around candidates using AI. So now
Mm-hmm.
you start to see some
Oh,
tools out there
100%
where
use it.
candidates can apply to 10,000 jobs,
Sure.
right, using AI. And I'm not necessarily for that. I'm more kind of a buyer of detection of those types of things, like detection software to find out who's used
Sh-
AI,
Should I give my
etc.
argument before he answers, though?
Go for
Yeah, yeah,
it.
absolutely. Go ahead.
It's not
Go
really
ahead.
an argument. If recruiters are able to use AI or tech to screen out 400 resumes, why can't I screen myself in the 400 jobs?
Well, and your most powerful part of your argument you didn't say is, do you care? At the end of the day,
Right.
if it placed
Well, yeah.
somebody,
Do you care?
do you care? And that's where I guess we get to a point where it's like, I think candidates should apply to the jobs that they have the best chance of applying to, and probably ought to, if you will. Like, I don't believe in the apply all,
Yeah.
etc. I don't like those. I just think it creates noise. So I'm one of those types of people, which could be my age, but I don't necessarily like creating more noise. And if AI, from a candidate's perspective, helps you facilitate through Gen AI or otherwise, just more resumes, personalized resumes, looking at the job description, looking at your own resume, and then personalizing it. I don't really like that, but I do get to at the end of Ryan's argument where it's like, okay, if it makes the placement,
Well, no, I'm not saying hit the easy button and apply to 500 jobs.
well, that's what they're
That's
doing.
that's just, yeah, well, that's what they're doing. That I don't like. But I like the power. The candidate has the power to personalize the resume and just say, look, here's 40 jobs that I save. I'm going through job boards.
Yeah,
Save,
yeah.
save, 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 save. Take those 40 jobs, create me 40 cover letters, create me 40 emails, create me 40 variations of my resume that potentially fit for each of these jobs, and give me something personalized. We're doing the same thing as recruiters in our reach out, in our emails, in our job descriptions. Why not allow the candidates to do the same?
You're gonna have to solve this for us,
I mean,
Matt.
I'm
This
sort of
is
in the what's good for the goose is good for the gander camp personally, right? Like I've never
I like
seen
this guy.
any technology that adds value. I've never seen it be successful to try to stop people from using it, right?
Right.
right.
If it helps, and if it helps a candidate, then they will figure out a way to do it, because it is essentially the same thing that we're doing on the recruiting side. And I
Right.
always make this
Mhm.
joke, like our Copilot generates pre-screening questions using an LLM. And I always make the joke that, can't the candidate just take those and answer them with an LLM? Like of course they can, right? And so
Yeah.
Mhm.
these are like ubiquitous tools that are publicly available, and I don't think stopping them from doing it's the right answer. I think detecting it's the right answer, and I think that
Yeah.
this also proves why the human is so important in this process, because you've got to be able to, now, of course, you don't want the recruiter having 1,000 conversations because somebody made a bunch of stuff up on their resumes, right? You can screen that kind of
Right.
stuff out, but this is why the person is so important, because it becomes really easy to kind of fake your way through this if you're a candidate. So I think you have to meet everybody where they are and figure out a way to embrace the fact that's probably what people are going to do.
Can AI help us? So thank you for solving that, Ryan.
I don't
You
know if
won.
I don't know if I solved it, but
No,
Look,
no.
I'm not going to humble brag, but
But you won.
kicked your ass on that one.
So staffing's kind of always had some things, and we've seen it now in corporate as well, where there's a ghosting and not fraud in the way that people think of fraud, but people maybe using other people's backgrounds and representing themselves in a different way. So can AI help us with those things? And do you see kind of it helping your clients either reduce the fraud, reduce ghosting and things like that, or candidates representing themselves incorrectly? Can I, or do you see AI as a response to that?
I do. I don't see it necessarily right this second. I mean, I think
Yeah,
there's an argument for like an immutable blockchain type verification of a human in their resume for this
right,
reason, right?
Hmm.
right,
Again, I
right,
think that actually doing that in practice at scale and having all the authorities be able to validate everything they've ever done is probably going to be hard.
right.
But that aside, yeah, I think generally that the reason I'm optimistic about AI in the future is I think that the more problems it solves, the more opportunities it creates. This is a perfect example of that, right? If AI is everywhere and people are able to use it to apply to jobs, and okay, well, an unintended consequence of that could certainly be more fraud. Okay, so
Right.
somebody's going to go figure out a technology solution to then go detect that fraud, right? And so it just creates this sort of in my opinion, positive snowball effect of of other technology providers sort of responding to the things that come from this.
Yeah, it's just like hackers. Hackers figure out a way to hack something, then there's another group of hackers that go, okay, we need to solve that.
Right.
So I mean,
Yeah.
it's just kind of the same type of
Totally.
thing.
Yeah.
That's where innovation comes from.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, it's a little bit off topic, but not really because, people are still going to have to hire these skills. But I think InfoSec and security is it's going to be so much easier in the next few years to hack. You're going to
Right.
have a bunch of response to that with new technologies and AI driven, security products and all these different things. And that creates employment opportunities then for people to go and build those things. So I think, there's a few areas that I think fit this really well. And, I would say security and fraud is one of them where I would expect there to be a marketplace of technology around.
It's funny when we were talking about the candidate thing and candidates using to personalize cover letters and personalize their resume. If you can when you can detect that, you might flip the job on them and put them in more of an AI centric
I
job.
love that. That's awesome.
It's like, hey, we're going to hire you for this bit over here, but you know
Yeah,
what? You're pretty good at
I
AI.
love that. That's
I
This
great.
thought you were
isn't,
going to go the opposite way and say, "Psych, there's not really a job.
no,
You're just kidding."
again, you're early on. And if somebody's really proven themselves to be adept at AI, you know what? There's probably another job for them at the company.
Yeah, I love it.
It might not be listed, but it's a pretty good company. Listen, this has been way more than I ever expected. So, Matt,
Yeah,
thank you so much for your time and coming on the show and kind of just talking with us about AI. So,
absolutely.
we
Thanks for
appreciate
having
you.
me, guys. I really enjoyed the discussion. Thanks.